If anyone joining us tonight has a quick question for President Corbett that you haven't already submitted, please add those in the chat with your name and town. We have 8 questions lined up for you so far. So we're asking everyone to please be mindful of your time once it's your turn. First up, we have Chris Martin from Haddon Township with his question.
Greetings, President Corbett, or Kevin, as you prefer.
Yep.
I have a quick question about the Newton Avenue bus station. That was actually like about the rollout you had, which your detailed explanation already rendered moot. So I'm actually going to call an audible here. I just got a note from the New York Times that said they are imposing a congestion pricing model, which might actually compel ridership for their transit options. And I was wondering what your take on that would be. Obviously, that's a congestion is a problem that we share on this side of the river. And does that seem realistic? Does that seem as to be something that might compel ridership down the line and could reduce our heavy burden of congestion pretty much in every part of this state? And real quick, before you get on that too, I do have a second part of the question I originally was going to ask, which is, do you see inductive charging for buses coming down the line at any point, which would be like different than the wired charging model they currently have? But that was just a quick aside.
Sure, yeah, Chris, on the latter one, it's something we're looking at, but right now for the infrastructure, we're looking in the bus system, the buses that we're purchasing. But we certainly are, our capital equipment guys are looking at that and working with Rutgers to see the pros and cons on that one. But going back to congestion pricing, I mean, it's been used internationally, Singapore, Oslo, London, effectively, but it has to be a regional, in my view, it has to be a regional approach. And certainly that New York is going ahead and, they got federal approval to do so. But I think it's got to be something that benefits the whole region, not just a money grab, but really be thoughtful, not just to use it for raising money, legitimate that is, for the transit systems, but that it also be really looked at, reducing, because, the air pollution, if the air pollution is over on Weehawken and the winds blow, prevailing winds come from the west, is that really helping, New York and the regional air quality? So I think it needs to be done thoughtfully, but I think there are places where it has been done thoughtfully with the focus of really reducing congestion and pollution, and then taking those proceeds to help fund a robust transit system so you get people out of their cars. But I think certainly support the governor's view. Aside from that, I work for him, but also just logically that it can't be just this, solving a capital program and not looking at what's right for the whole region.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Sanjita Doshi of Cherry Hill.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good, thanks, Sangeeta. You tell me, how am I doing?
To thank Sean and everyone on Tri-County, for putting this together and inviting New Jersey Transit to participate. So as being on Cherry Hill Council and New Jersey Transit Board, I look forward to being the conduit as much as I can between New Jersey Transit and sustainability efforts. So you're doing great, Kevin. So thank you for the update. I think I had a question that someone had asked, but I think you already covered it. If you had anything else to ask about what can we as Tri-County community do to help ensure New Jersey Transit has the resources required to continue serving our region, particularly in the state?
Yeah, I think it's advocacy and really educating both elected officials as well as the broader environment community. A lot of people are, care about the environment. They may be issued in land issues, right? Land preservation in certain areas, or, there are different aspects of the environmental movement, air quality or water quality. But the impact, I think it's, particularly in New Jersey, is not nearly as appreciated as elsewhere. The importance of role that public transit plays in, a number of issues that are usually, strongly supported by, environmental community. So I think both with public officials as well as, your own groups, to get the word out is, particularly advocacy for funding. And also participating, though, to make sure that we are doing our job. I'd like to think we are, but CEOs come and go, or different agencies have ups and downs, or sometimes they get politicized, more politicized, less. You need to hold their feet to the fire, which advocacy, that's an important role in American advocacy. So I think those reasons are all good reasons. But I think there's a lot of room upside in New Jersey for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Next, we have John Boyle of Edgewater Park.
Thank you, and thank you for taking my question, President. So my question is, New Jersey Transit charges up to 21 zones for bus travel. And meanwhile, and what that does is that can cause delays on the bus with people who are confused. And it's almost impossible to figure out what your fare is. And that's on top of a transfer system that's extremely complicated. Other peer transit systems in our region, such as SEPTA, has eliminated the transfer for the first bus with their key card. And Dartford State, which is another statewide system, has reduced their zones to 3 zones throughout the state. And transfers have been eliminated because day passes replace the zone system. And my question is New Jersey Transit looking into simplifying the fare zone system?
Yeah, John. Yeah, I gotta say it is. Why we as somebody else, mainly a rail commuter, I'd take the bus occasionally, but before I had this job, but now you're coming over from Broad Street, I take the bus all the time. Of course, fortunately, as New Jersey Transit, one benefit I guess I don't have to pay for my trips, but the fare zone system is pretty arcane. I mean, there's a whole legacy reason why it evolved. That's we'll talk about that anytime, but certainly simplifying the fare zones is something that makes a lot of sense for us. I think with technology, all our buses now have the tap and go technology. On our trains, we have the scanning technology. So the more that you can use your iPhone and just tap and go, a bit like with Easy Pass, you drive through. If you get on exit 9, you get off at exit 13. People, I don't think they get the Easy Pass statement. I don't know how many of them really notice the difference. So I think technology may help eliminate some of the awkwardness. But as far as having a simplified, fare system, that's something we're definitely interested in. As part of the reform legislation that we've had, it's, to the degree, obviously no one's going to argue if your simplification makes their fares go down. But if, try to simplify, somebody goes up, even if it's a nickel, then there's a whole palaver. So in doing that, we'd have to do an organized structure. And under the reform legislation, we have to have, hearings throughout the state, multiple hearings day and night, so it makes the progress. It may be more transparent or get more public input, but it also makes it a lot longer to do that. But, that would be certainly something looking at. Logically, it should be that way. And I think technology may make it easier, but having a simpler fare structure will make it easier. And that's something, we'll be looking at down the line when it comes time, for fare increases or fare adjustments.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next from North Bergen, we have Smadar Shamash.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking my question. I wanted to find out what would it take to have a direct rail line from Atlantic City all the way to Newark or Secaucus even?
Yeah, it's if you go back to the history of American railroads, we did have, we used to provide service from New York down to Atlantic City. And you go back to Pennsylvania Railroad. So, I mean, the right-of-ways were there, but it was a matter of, it was not profitable for the private railroads, so they abandoned it. New Jersey Transit tried it with the ACES system for a while, but it was not, didn't get enough ridership apparently to justify the cost. And I think when you start looking at it's a chicken and egg problem, people say, well, if you don't have service, would we use it? But you look at, 90% of our budget on the capital side is going to stay to good repair. We have a system, our first oldest station in Chatham, I think goes back to 1842 or 44, when the first railroads. So with such huge capital needs, just to keep the existing system going, as I mentioned on the bus side, it's easier to adjust bus schedules and bus programs, although you still need bus depots, et cetera. And for EV bus, you need the charging. But to get a rail line like that would be very serious and very heavy investment, knowing that even under the best of circumstances with good ridership, you would still have to have a significant public subsidy because you're not going to be able to charge, make it on a profitable basis. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone out of business. So I think the best potential for Atlantic City is really the Atlantic City to Philadelphia along our existing right-of-way, but going up to New York directly, although there are historic right-of-ways there, I think looking at the capital needs, even in an unconstrained capital plan that we have, that was not in it. But if somebody could make a case and show there would be ridership and looking at the right of way, that's something that can be studied. But I think realistically, that's not in the near term future.
All right, thanks. Going to keep it moving. We have Patrick McDevitt of Williamstown next.
Yes, hello, and thank you for speaking at our meeting tonight. I was wondering, speaking about the Glassboro-Camden line, can you help us understand what is the relationship between New Jersey Transit and DRPA, and why are they acting as the lead, agency on that line?
Yeah, Pat, that goes back to before I got here, but the history, but knowing DRPA and the relationship with PATCO and the sort of the rail network at the time and the evolution of PATCO, they were seen as a logical partner for New Jersey Transit down there because of the experience they had. We have a good partnership with them, but obviously, at the end of the day, we anticipate would be operating that service.
Thank you.
And we work very closely and collaboratively with them, so it's not a turf war between different agencies. Hey, take advantage of their experience. They're good people. That kind of thing.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you. Sharana Allen of East Orange.
Hello, everyone. I'm sure you saw some of my young people in the background. I allowed them to join our meeting with me today because we have our evening after school program. But anyway, I am Sharonda Allen. I'm the Tri-County Sustainability EJ co-chair, one of the co-chairs. We're focused on equity and green jobs. How can we help New Jersey Transit in efforts to expand micro-transit systems to get folks between Camden and Newark to wind and solar jobs in New Jersey? And also, we're out here in Franklin in Somerset County, and the young people wanted to know if there could be like an electric bus or an electric van or an electric trolley that could get them around the community, because they say that, they can't get anywhere unless their parents drive them. So there's no real local public transportation here. So sorry for the two questions. They didn't want to get on camera to ask, but I did want to ask in proxy for them.
Good question. I think, when you talk about green jobs, and I mean, it's, transit, I'd say all our jobs are green jobs in a sense. Even, if you're driving, you're a bus operator, you're on the train crew, you're helping the environment. But I think specifically when you look at technologies, and if you take a look at our sustainability plan and what we're doing with our capital plan that focuses, any of the things, they have any interest in STEM. I mean, all sort of the engineering, everything that's going to be going into the whole field of renewable energy and how we're going to be using it. Whether it be, as I mentioned, whether it be solar, whether it be the EV buses or hydrogen. I mean, there's so many areas they can go into. But also our environmental group, our environmental practice. There's a whole range of jobs they can go to. And I think you touch on equity, though, is really important, is being able to get access to jobs, is having transportation. And, to agree, we have bus routes. Like I used to live down with my wife and I were in grad school down in South Middlebush in Franklin, on a farm. And so much of that has been developed now. As soon as a farmer died, boom, there are 50 tractors and houses going up like they planted house seeds. But, the road system is still the same. So, the buses that go along 27, but that was all farm country when I was, a grad student at Princeton. So, that's, getting buses generally going to EV. I mean, that's a state mandate, so we're going to have to go there. We're working with local counties, on how they can provide their local services that they do, that we dovetail with them to have that coordination and people using their apps to be able to go from one place to the other. The other thing is micromobility, and particularly we have that in our access link. We're doing pilot programs where people can use, many of the transit systems around the country feel that Uber or Lyft, TNEs are a threat to them. And for us, I've seen it very much. There are a few places where we see it triaging against us, somewhat to agree on some of our bus routes in South Jersey. But generally, we see that it feeds as a complement, feeding, if you're going over to Metro Park, you're going over to New Brunswick, or Manville or something to go to the train. If you can use a micromobility to get you to us, to feed us, sort of, the hub and spoke or, the feeder system, micromobility can be a really good, aspect of being a complementary. So we're doing some pilot programs, particularly for our access link, where people, can, if they don't need a vehicle that specifically has a lift, or they're going there for medical, maybe dialysis or something that doesn't require, a wheelchair, that they can opt into a program so they can use Uber and Lyft, which is cheaper than it costs us per trip to do with our minibuses. So there are a number of programs that we have, and glad to get you more information afterwards on that, or where you can get involved, and certainly to get the next generation involved. It's a great, transportation is great future, and particularly transit, where it ties into equity and getting people jobs. I touched on during the pandemic, it was the people on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum who needed public transportation to be able to get around when others didn't. So you may not make as much money as you can maybe in other fields, but certainly it's a very rewarding field. So it encourages the young ones behind you to get involved. Become internships in the summer. At New Jersey Transit.
And I just want to say thank you for creating a new line for the 31 to 24.
Yeah.
I went to the Easy Ride luncheon thingy, and I mentioned that, and you guys got right on it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to, but it just shows you the need. When the private sector decides they're not making enough money, they cut the service, and they said, oh, we're not making money. They cut it, they dump it back on the public sector, and then everyone starts saying, oh, Kevin, you guys got to provide service. Like, well, we need buses, we need operators, like that takes money, but we're glad we were able to, the money we've had the last 6 years to support, put us in a position where we could take over those lines on short notice and be able to actually enhance them now. So yeah, the ridership has picked up there too. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Next, Chris Whitehead of Burlington Township. All right, I'm gonna keep it moving. Doug O'Malley. I believe
Doug, you're on mute.
Of course I am. Of course I am. You think I'd learn something. So great to see folks. Great to see you, President Corbett. Doug O'Malley with Environment New Jersey, late night here in Trenton. I just wanted to thank you, President Corbett, for just joining Tri-County, right? There's a huge interest in transit. Obviously, they have a statewide audience. I also just wanted to kind of thank you for that little history lesson on the kind of formation of NJT, which really was a private market failure. You're just obviously just talking about the private market failure that we've seen in the sort of private bus carrier route, right? There's, whether you're DeCamp or the ANC bus lines, like you were literally waiting, you were stuck at the end of a street waiting for a bus to come that wasn't going to come. And I guess I wanted to just reflect on the line you just said about, it comes down to money, because obviously we haven't had a fare hike in numerous years, 2015 to be exact. When we did see fare hikes and service cuts, that really did, it impacted communities across the state, including in South Jersey, when the bus line went away to Great Adventure, when you had, that I remember that very heated hearing in Atlantic City about the shutdown, and I'm sure you do as well on the AC rail line, that people obviously depend on this. The cuts that in Burlington County in 2010, in the Christie era, of bus lines going away, and obviously there's you need to quote unquote be efficient, but obviously you have strap hangers that depend upon these lines to get to work, to get to a job, to spend time with family. You know that better than anyone. And I guess my question is, you rattled off at the top of the call, or at the top of the Q&A session, just a number of states that are taking action on funding, whether it be New York, whether it be California. You mentioned Dallas, Fort Worth, and Salt Lake. You know, and obviously in New Jersey, we haven't quite had that action that feels like it's starting to change. And just yesterday, Senator Paul Sarlo, who chairs the Budget Committee, said that it was probably time to be looking at dedicated funding. The governor, in his address to BIA, also referenced, and notice to the audience, BIA is also supporting the need to have funding for transit. But the governor also indicated that, you know, the importance of having funding solutions for transit. So, you know, we're not going to obviously solve all of NJT's funding crises on this call, but it does seem like things have changed. The political climate is changing because of the fiscal cliff. I will also, you know, as you well know, the capital operating raids obviously aren't show up exactly on the budget, but that's another $300 million of need. So I'm curious if you could just kind of lay out, you know, as we're in this moment where the legislature and other decision makers are realizing we need a long-term dedicated funding source, just talk about some of the solutions that could provide that funding for New Jersey Transit. And then also to maybe reference, and some are obvious, some are a little less so, and maybe talk about some innovative solutions that other states are also using that may be time for New Jersey to kind of look at. The idea being that we're not going to come back to this. Ideally, we're able to kind of solve this with one hit, and we don't want to kind of have a half solution and then have to come back year after year, kind of like where we are right now. So really curious if you could kind of think about what the solution is for dedicated funding and what that might look like as we kind of stare at the fiscal cliff.
Yeah, sure, Doug. And you and I have talked. It was the first time I think you've ever called me President Corbett. Like I was looking over my shoulder. No, but, yeah. But yeah, Doug and I have certainly collaborated over the last few years. And Doug, thanks for all your support and input and guidance on a lot of our efforts. You know, I think the first, you know, there's no one magic wand. If it was easy, it would be, you know, a lot of people would do it. But I think one of the things that it was easy to beat up on New Jersey Transit was a piñata. If you underfund it, then everyone says, oh, well, you know, it's poorly run, it's not running, you know, they're irregular, their buses are breaking down. You get all the typical news media stories that are always negative, and all the tweets and Twitter, you know, oh, it's horrible, and fire everyone, they're all a bunch of bums and they stink, and, you know. So then you're trying to go ask for funding, and everybody, well, the reason that, you know, the employees, when I came in, you know, I mean, needed a clean house on a number of, you know, sort of depoliticize the agency, get people focused on actual transportation. But aside from that, you know, morale issues, you know, people, you know, badmouth public service and public servants. So, you know, it was really sort of, you felt like you were in the transit Hunger Games. People were really, morale was horrible. There was no capital plan, no funding, no roadmap. And then you go to legislators, they're looking, you know, and political leaders, and so like, well, you know, we want to give these people, you know, money. And so I think, you know, the governor, Murphy, to his credit, said, no, he understood the importance of transit, said, we're going to fund it and get the place properly managed. And he took the hits in the early years as we did what was necessary, the triage process we went through with PTC, particularly you referenced shutting down the AC line. But I think with the money that we were given at the time, we were able to, you know, we have a really good team, a lot of great employees, show that, hey, given the right resources and some decent management, you know, we can start turning things around. And, you know, we're not you know, we may not be Singapore or you know, Geneva as far as yet as our transit system, but, you know, over the last 6 years, there's been a lot of positive steps, a lot of progress. And each year that as we've started living up to what we promised, I think we gain credibility with a lot of the electeds. And, you know, what kind of company can you go and hire people where they don't know next year they're going to get laid off, right? Well, we can hire this year, but next year we may not have money, so we may have to fire you and cut back our service. And that living hand to mouth year by year, you know, it prevents wise investments. It prevents getting, you know, really retaining people, you know, over long-term, you know, and career development, succession planning, all that. So the importance of having dedicated funding, you know, for any transit, ahead of any transit agency, anything in the world is really important. As far as the various, you know, I'm watching the clock here too, so I won't go too much in. There's a whole range. It's almost like a Chinese menu of, if you look at different transit agencies around the country, it's sort of what political leaders have the balanced budgets. They have healthcare, they have education, other things, obviously, aside from transit, you know, and then you have the road and highway side as well of transportation. So, you know, but I think you look at, you know, say New York, for example, they have the mortgage recording tax. So they take some off the, that's acceptable. Some places value capture where you have easier economic local zoning override by a state regional agency that allows you, get a percentage of the upgrade of real estate development. So I say in New York, they also include the mortgage recording tax or tax on Ubers, Lyfts, but certain places, bond referendums are popular. Those can often be very, depending which year it is. You can have a national election where if it ends up be going as someone who's against you could lose a referendum on something that would normally pass, but depending on who's on the top of the ticket, that could adversely. And I think those kind of issues better. Sales tax is one that I see as being used in a lot of places. That the upside of that is generally, is tied to the growth in the economy, and then also if there's inflation, it sort of automatically sort of piggybacks on that. So it seems the agencies that have at least a portion, if not a significant part of their funding coming from sales tax seem to benefit. But usually it's a number of places it seems to be a mix. Utility bills, tax. I mean, there's different areas or fees, and I think it was Ronald Reagan, who said, when was told about the national, tax or for the highway bill, said we don't. It's not a tax; it's a user fee. And he was all one for going, but no, that's a user fee. So a lot of it may be in the wording political wording rather than the actual substance, but. Certainly, if you look from an equity viewpoint, environmental viewpoint, there are a number of things where if you look at it from a return on investment, we're never going to be profitable, but we generate great wealth for the state. Comes through in a variety of ways. So the state gets it through the back door, and then they feed, they give it to us. But I think if you look at us as a profit entity, like, oh, well, you have to cut and cut and cut. And we always need to be lean and mean, and be efficient, but I think there's no false promise that you're going to be able to make cuts and to make us so we're going to be break even or profitable, and that's not the national model. So the understanding that there has to be public support and there's a healthy debate, and I do think you're right. A number of legislators have said that, even on both sides of the aisle, that they see that New Jersey Transit's doing pretty well right now, and they want to keep that, and they know that they need to step up now. It's a matter of funding, not so much the lack of vision or lack of management.
All right.
And there's a plan now.
Sadly, we're going to have to cut it off there. Please continue to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to get them to President Corbett. Kevin, we appreciate you being so generous with your time. We've all learned so much, and we have some calls to make and some work to do. Thanks again to you and all the hardworking folks at New Jersey Transit. Now,
thanks very much. I hope I didn't take too much time. Great to see such a great turnout, and certainly, for me or any other team, for any other future topics you want us to participate in, we'd be delighted to. And thanks for listening, and really hope that you can help advocate for all the right reasons. And we'll look to future engagements.